Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Neuro Digest, our 5th episode here on Science TV with me, your host, Sylvia Mochabo, my sign interpreter, Maureen Maitha. And today we are truly honored to be hosting our first guest at Neuro Digest, and this is Dr. John Onala Ouma. That is a heavy, weighty man with a PhD behind his name. And Mr. Onala here has a PhD in early intervention, and he's a consultant in developmental disabilities. So you've been listening to me as a mother and my self-taught skills, but today we have brought to you the real doctor, the doctor who tells you this is what we're looking at, where your son lays or your daughter lays, and what to do, and gives you guidance even to what to feed, what to do at what time of the day to be able to manage your child. So please stay tuned and make sure send in your questions. The SMS number is 20508. Repeat again, the SMS number is 2058. So if you have any questions, you can send in your SMS and then we will be able to answer them. And also engage with us on social media. You can go to Andy Speaks 4 on Twitter, and on Instagram it is Andy Speaks, or talk to me directly on my Instagram at Sylvia Mochabo, and on Twitter at Mora Sylvia. Now, Daktari, could you first just introduce the lengthy CV? I've given you only a brief summary so that I can give him the opportunity to be able to tell us more about himself. Karibu, Daktari.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so you've already said my name. So I'm a consultant in developmental and learning difficulties. We avoid the term disabilities nowadays. Yeah, I work with children with developmental and learning needs. So that means I do assessments to find out where things went wrong, and then give recommendations on what we need to do to help the child make progress. I work with parents, I work with teachers, therapists, and caregivers. So we look at early intervention. Before early intervention, we do early diagnosis. So we look at when the problem started. So when we talk of early intervention, we can't talk about early intervention without early diagnosis. So a child must be diagnosed early. And when we talk of early, we mean nowadays, early means from birth.
From birth? Oh, yeah. Wow. We've gotten there.
Birth.
We can actually tell from birth.
Before birth, we can tell certain signs.
In Kenya?
Even in Kenya.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there are quite a number of conditions, developmental conditions that can be detected before birth.
Okay.
Yeah, things like muscular dystrophy, hydrocephaly, and even there could be telltale signs for ADHD before birth. If there's irregularity in fetal movement, then there's most likely going to be some challenge in neurodevelopment of the child.
So we are saying an ADHD child can start being hyper even in the stomach?
Yes, their movement is different.
Okay.
You know, for a typical child, the fetal movement is regular.
All right, okay.
For ADHD, there's irregularity in fetal movement.
Okay.
And so that can be detected early.
For our male viewers who do not experience carrying a child, kindly explain when you say fetal movement, is it the there is that time you're like, iyo ni mkono, iyo ni mguu.
Exactly.
Is it that time? Okay.
So, I'll engage you in that because you're a mother of
3 years.
Of 3 years. Now, when you're quite happy, maybe you're dancing and you're enjoying your music, there's usually regularity in fetal movement.
Yes.
Your child moves according to your emotions and rhythm.
That's true.
Now, for a child who is likely to have ADHD, sometimes when there's that movement and you're enjoying things, the child could be silent, not moving.
Oh, opposite.
Yes. And then when you're not happy and things are not moving, then the movement could be quite rigorous. And sometimes the child is kicking, and some others will even say it was even painful at some point. The kicking was different. So, and that can be picked even through ultrasound.
Okay. You just sent me back. I'm trying to figure out, because one of my sons actually has ADHD. I'm trying to remember how active was he. You know, I'll actually take some time and maybe do some yoga and try and revisit 7.5 years back what it was like and the difference between my pregnancies. Then maybe that way. So we've learned something new. You can actually tell ADHD
before birth.
Yes. And then now you said some very I just had Sophalas or something like that.
means that the fluid in the brain is not draining well, so the brain collects a lot of fluid in it, and so the head tends to bulge.
Okay.
And so that can be picked through scan. You can see that the head is becoming bigger.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and sometimes we have children whose spinal cord do not close quite well.
Okay.
We call it spinal bifida.
Okay.
And so that can also be picked before birth. And even clubfoot can be picked before birth. Yeah, so there's so many conditions. And nowadays even Down syndrome can be picked before birth. There are a number of tests that can be done. If you suspect maybe that there could be a problem, a number of tests can be done. But we also know that there are telltale signs for children with autism from birth. That early.
Now you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
We cannot make a concrete diagnosis early,
All right.
but we'll be able to say there are telltale signs that indicate that this child is likely going to have autism.
Okay.
Yeah. So just giving typical example, I want you to reflect back on your children. So you get your child, and then the first breastfeeding.
All right.
Yeah. You're trying to bond with your child.
Yes.
Yeah. So at that point, the child is operating on reflexes.
Okay.
So the child has not learned something in the environment. So if it's a child born with autism, research shows that even their bonding is different from that of a typical child.
Okay.
So typical child, after being with the mother maybe for 2-3 days, there's already a bond between the two.
Okay.
So when the child is breastfeeding, the child's head tilts towards the mother's face. Typically,
or like looking at me, like when I'm breastfeeding.
Yeah, in as much as the child is not really interested in looking at you, but naturally the head just tilts.
Yeah, but there is usually that gaze that they give you.
Yes, they give you the gaze, right, so you get it. A child with autism will not give you that.
All of them or some?
Majority of them, not all of them. Actually, when it comes to eye contact, not all children with autism will lack eye contact. There are those people with autism with very good eye contact.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it the length of the contact, or is it just general eye contact when we're trying? Because you see, maybe it's distraction. I'm in a new environment that we could do.
So
but is it like a timed thing? Like if my child does not pay attention during the moment of breastfeeding for a certain period, that we get concerned?
Typically, if I need anything from you, I have to give you eye contact.
Yes.
When I'm talking to you, I have to give you eye contact. Yes. If I want that thing you have, I have to give you eye contact.
Yes.
But these children will want something from you, but still not giving you eye contact. Okay. A typical child might not always give you eye contact. Maybe he's playing a game somewhere, or he's interested in the TV, or doing something somewhere. So he'll not give you eye contact, even when you're talking. Even for adults, no, if I'm talking to you, and maybe I'm interested in something somewhere, I'll give my attention to the other thing, but still talking to you.
Okay.
So, but when we talk of lack of eye contact, it means I'm engaging you socially and not looking at you. Okay. Yeah. So if it's at that point, then that's when you say there's limited or there's lack of eye contact.
Okay, let me take you back a bit. When you were talking about the brain fluids, yeah? Is this something that now, normally when a lady is pregnant, they will always tell you this at the report of the scan at the bottom, they say head circumference, abdominal something. So those are the measurements that are usually checked to give us the telltale sign.
Now those ones are checked at birth.
At birth.
Yeah.
No, but even when you do a scan, there is some numbers that they write. They write head circumference, abdominal circumference, and something with the femur. I was very apt reading those things.
Okay.
As much as it didn't make sense. So now I'm now very interested, like, so if we can tell.
The circumference that they're measuring before birth is just to see if the head is actually growing.
Okay.
But if it goes beyond certain point, then they'll be concerned. They'll tell you there's a concern. And let's say if you're in a developed country, you will be booked in for operation at birth. So the child is born, and maybe a day or two, the child is taken for an operation to fix shunt of the head. So a shunt is a pipe that will help drain the fluid from the head towards the heart, because the fluid is not draining by itself. So in that case, the child will develop a condition called arrested cerebral hydrocephaly. It's arrested in the sense that it's now controlled, so it will not bulge. And so the child is less likely going to develop symptoms of cerebral palsy like paralysis, or the head will now start growing normally. So in that case, the condition is controlled surgically.
Wow.
But if a child was born in the rural, in the house, in the village, then those things will not be done. So the child will suffer.
So we are also encouraging the mothers to deliver in hospital so that these things are able to be
and start going for your clinic early.
Early.
Yeah.
Early is what?
From the first month.
The first month.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you never know. We give it a trisex, like maybe I'm stressed out. So the minute we should still check and go and have
it. If you just
and
miss your first period, go for checkup. And if you are found pregnant, start doing the right thing.
How does that help?
You are preventing the likelihood of a child developing certain conditions.
Okay.
You see, if you do not know that you're expecting and you're drinking, you're eating badly, you're partying, you're smoking, then you're risking the life of that child.
Wow.
Yeah. There's so many conditions that are related to smoking, to drinking, and even maternal emotional condition.
Okay.
If you're in a stressful condition, every time you're stressed or you're depressed, you secrete adrenaline.
Okay.
And that is a heavy neurochemical that prepares you for fight or flight.
Wow.
And so that interferes with the neurological development of the child before birth. So maternal condition before birth is very important. Yeah.
You know, everything you're saying is just sending me back. I'm trying to think like, what was my life like when I was pregnant?
Yeah.
You know, because you know we've had questions about what causes autism. Is it before, during, after? You know, we still have the stigma-related issues that people say, oh, you were cast, oh, you did this, that's why someone else did this. So I'm just seeing answers. You know. I'm trying to think like how active was I that adrenaline would have gotten to my child at the time of carrying the pregnancy. But a lot of it makes sense, and thank you, Daktari. Now we've learned so many things. I'm feeling like my head is heavy, and I'm like, we've not even gone. That was only 10 minutes of system overload. But yes, my dear friends and our viewers, we are here with Dr. Onala, who has a PhD in early intervention and is also a specialist consultant on developmental disorders. And like we say, please send in your questions, 2058. That is the SMS number for any questions you could be having for Daktari, so that we might be able to educate you even where you are. For now, we shall just take it all in slowly but surely. And also you can engage us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, Andy Speaks for Twitter, Andy Speaks for Instagram, and the Facebook page is Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons. And Daktari will be here with us, but we'd like to take a break so that he can have a breather. Like you've heard, that was a lot. I also need to just process, and I've been taken down memory lane. I'd like to take some a moment and try and reflect and see at what point I was so hyper that actually the boys actually are very hyper. But it has shed a lot of light, and I appreciate. So don't go away, stay with us, and we shall be right back with Dr. John Onala. And we would like to say also thank you. We are here with our interpreter Mori and me, your host, Sylvia Mochabo. See you in a few minutes. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us, and welcome back to Neuro Digest, episode number 5, where we are discussing early intervention and early diagnosis. With me is our first guest on Neuro Digest, Mr. John Onala, who is a specialist in the area of neurodiversity, and we have our interpreter Maureen and myself, Sylvia Mochabo. Engages on SMS 20508. And we'll go back to Daktari. He had given us a system overload. and new discoveries that indeed you can tell if your child will have neurodiversity from the time you're pregnant. That is something I have learned. I knew that that is possible in the western side of the world, that is the US and the UK, the more developed countries, but I did not know in Kenya you can actually get to do that. So I had asked Daktari off air that does that mean our doctors have to go back to school to be able to identify these issues? So,
right. Yeah, that's a very interesting question and very important. You know, in every profession, even for me to survive in the field, in consultancy, I must read every day.
Okay.
Yeah, you must always take refresher courses for you to survive, you know, in a changing world. If we have a doctor who graduated, let's say just even 5 years ago, a span of 5 years in the current world is a long period of time. It's probably like 100 years in the previous years, because the inventions and the amount of research that is published every day is enormous. And so you have to keep refreshing your mind. You keep studying. So sometimes maybe, I'm not accusing the medical practitioners, but sometimes we find ourselves sticking to the old practice. Yeah, and also a lot of assumption. Have you ever gone to hospital? And when you're explaining something to a doctor and you see the doctor Googling?
Well, you know, the doctor sits there, the screen is that side, so I cannot tell. For me, I'd assume like you're entering my story in your fact sheet or something like that.
But why can't this doctor listen first to the...
Actually, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we have challenges here and there, and every profession is open for update.
No, you know, that makes me feel very insecure. If we are told do not trust Dr. Google and my doctor is Googling.
Then Google, everybody can post in anything.
Yes.
Yeah, so not all. If you want to get information online, go to research journals.
All right.
Yeah.
So do they go to the research journals, or is it Dr. Google?
No, Dr. Google will give you all kinds of information.
So they even if they're Googling, they're going to the right channel.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Why? We've just heard about red meat. Please let us be at ease a bit, just a bit, on our doctors, so that we can be able to trust that side. Okay, that is good. Or I'd like for us to move now after I give birth. Now, take us to the next level of, yes, we've said before giving birth, there are those things that the doctor can be able to tell us. Then just a bit on that, like, do I have to have had a history for the doctor to be able to question the time of my scans when I'm pregnant? Or is it something that so long as you're a doctor, you should be able to raise a red flag when you notice something?
No, every doctor should raise a red flag if you notice anything abnormal in the scan. Yeah, so, and if there's history, that makes it easier. Yeah, for the doctor to look at certain things. But if there's no history and you've seen a red flag somewhere, then you should say, I think I need to get second opinion on this, or refer the client to another specialist who will be able to diagnose that. Yeah, but once now the child is born and life has to continue, so the parent also need to be keen on a number of signs. Now, at what age is the child crawling, the child standing, what time does the child start talking the first few words. So if you feel that there's a delay, even if doctors tell you it will be fine, especially with boys, they tell you boys are different, they are usually slow. Yeah. If your gut tells you that I think there's a problem somewhere, 6-second opinion, even if you're told things are okay. Yeah, so 6-second opinion, talk to another doctor, talk to another person from a different professional line. So if your pediatrician tells you, I think it's okay, your child is fine, and your child is 2 years and not talking, talk to a speech therapist or an occupational therapist. Yeah, someone from a different line, because then they'll think differently. Yeah, you see, you could be working, let's say, you're working in an institution in a community that is probably pastoralist, let's say pastoralist community. And so parents are busy working in the field, herding cattle and goats, those kind of things. So children do not have someone to talk to. And so most of the children who will be coming to hospital do not have speech. And so for you, that is normal.
Oh, because of the environment.
The environment, yeah.
Okay.
So if you are transferred to Nairobi, where children speak a little bit early, and a child comes at 2 years and not talking, then you tell the parent, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Then that parent needs to seek second opinion, go talk to another person. So cultural background is also very important.
That makes sense. I've had many parents say that, yes, when I went to the doctor, they say just wait, give them time, they will catch up, and the babies are different. So my fellow parents, as you hear, if those things happen, seek a second opinion. And now that's the very first few ages. We had gone through the signs and symptoms with our viewers. Now for you as a professional who does the early intervention, what is the extraordinary? How do you tell that my child is mildly, we say autism is a spectrum. So we say there is the low end, medium, and high end. So the ones who need less care, the ones who need a lot of care, and those who just need moderate support for them to go about their normal daily living. So how do you decide? I'm assuming you're the one who decides, or you're the one who advises the parent. Like your child is autistic, right? You're let's not call you the bearer of bad news. But like you're one of the rubber stamp to tell someone, yes, we suspect this because of ABCD, and we advise you to do EFGH. So tell us, like, exactly what is it that you do that advises for you to make the conclusion?
Okay, how do we, in other words, how do you diagnose?
Diagnose, yes.
Okay. For any condition, there's usually a laid down criteria for diagnosis for any condition. So you'll hear in forums people saying that condition A or condition B is very difficult to diagnose. It's because the person has not looked at the criteria for diagnosis. So for autism, there are three main areas that we'll focus on. So you'll hear people saying child A is autistic because is hyperactive, is inattentive. Those ones are not even symptoms of autism.
Okay.
Yeah, so this child. So we look at three major areas. The first one is impairments in language.
Okay.
So both receptive and expressive, affecting both verbal and non-verbal communication. So that's a whole area, it's a wide area, looking at the way the child is talking. Some children will not have speech, others will have speech, but not using it correctly. So language is one area. Then I'm just mentioning that because you had gone through that.
Yes, we have.
So the second area is social understanding. So understanding of emotions, expressing their own emotions, developing relationships, initiating and maintaining relationships. These children will want to play on their own, not developing any kind of attachment, but they may have limited attachment. So that's the second area. And then the third area is usually lack of flexibility of thought and behavior. That they are inflexible, they want things to be done in a particular way. They'll have a lot of ritualistic behaviors like clapping hands, like rocking, eating specific foods, quite a number of things. So those are three areas. So you'll get from my description that I haven't mentioned anything to do with attention span.
Yes.
I haven't mentioned anything to do with hyperactivity because those ones are not symptoms of autism.
So what would you call them?
Those ones are symptoms of ADHD, but people always confuse
the two.
Yeah, so you have to collect enough data from those areas, and then in line with the diagnostic statistical manual. Now there's a manual that defines how diagnosis must be made. So
which one do we use here in Kenya? I know I've heard about DSM. Yes.
Yeah.
There was another one. They're very complex terms. So which one? Well, like in Kenya, what is the standard that we use? What's the yardstick?
Autism is the same throughout the world.
Okay.
Yeah, whether you're in the UK, you're in Kenya, you're in the US, you're in Australia, the reference point is the diagnostic statistical manual. Okay. But then, before you go to diagnostic statistical manual, we have assessment tools. Diagnostic statistical manual is not a tool, it's like the constitution.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Biblia yaku.
Yes. Then now to say whether it's mild, moderate, or severe, then we have tools that will help you analyze the neurobehavioral characteristics that the person presents. So we have like one that I like using is called Gilliam Autism Rating Scale. Currently we're using 3rd edition. We have Childhood Autism Rating Scale. There are quite a number. Okay. Those are now the tools that will be used to assess autism. Okay. And then you say now this child seems to meet diagnosis based on these two, then you now refer to the DSM.
Okay.
So if one of the, let's say the child has significant impairments in language, keeps repeating everything that you say, does not process language, and the child does not have good relationship with others, cannot play with other children, but then there's no restrictive behavior, then that child does not meet the diagnosis for autism. Oh. But you see this child rocking and flapping hands and not talking. But if one of the three components is missing, then it's a totally different diagnosis.
So
but not autism. There are so many other diagnoses that are related to autism.
Or they are like the ones we say that they're in the spectrum. In the spectrum.
Actually, when we talk of the spectrum, things have actually changed. That's why I was saying the 5 years.
I told you we're going to get schooled today. Today we're getting schooled. Okay,
so, you see, we are currently using the 5th edition of the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. Okay. Before these things are published, data is collected globally. You're allowed to send your views, she's allowed to send her views, I will send mine. And they will take like 2 or 3 years collecting information. These are psychological organizations. Okay. Before saying now, this is what the professionals internationally have agreed on. And so this is going to be the diagnostic criteria. So in the previous diagnosis, the spectrum of autism had 5 areas. So we had the classic autism, childhood disintegrative disorders, Asperger's syndrome, there were 5. Yeah. So those ones are not there anymore. So things change. Yeah. So right now we are talking of autism spectrum disorder. Okay. But now people who are diagnosed with Asperger's before lost their diagnosis for Asperger's and got now the diagnosis for autism. We had other conditions like childhood disintegrative disorder. So if the child disintegrated, by the way, childhood disintegrative disorder is the worst condition.
I'm trying to figure out, when you say disintegrate, I'm just thinking something crumbling. So
yes,
I'm trying
exactly,
to,
just like that.
To relate.
Because this child was developing normal, the child was talking, the child went to school, maybe was #1 in class, and everything was okay. And then the child started disintegrating, started losing speech, started losing motor functioning, all those things.
So they recess. It's like
yes,
they
like
regress. They regress now to.
Actually, regressing is a milder term.
Wow.
Yeah.
So disintegrate is the right word. And tentatively, what age are most cases that, what did you call it again?
The childhood disintegrating.
Yes.
Between 3 and 6. But there has been cases of children disintegrating after 7.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. I'll tell you a small story. Today I was in Mochabo. I went to do empowerment for women and children and persons living with disability. And the lady who I met has a very interesting story. Now, I'm interested because that makes sense. Because she grew very well. In her teenage, she passed through teenage. And then she just started losing mobility. Now she's on a wheelchair. She cannot move. Her fine motor skills are gone. Her speech is gone. She's hearing impaired. I understand she can only hear a bit on one side. And you see, now I'm trying to put myself in her shoes, right? Because like today we were communicating. I'd write the questions. Like you can tell, she would struggle to write the answer because of the effects of that degeneration. That's a very heavy word for a human being. Like I'm trying to place a human being and then saying that they're disintegrating or degenerating. It sounds like
there's degeneration and there's a condition called muscular dystrophy. Okay. So what you're explaining to me almost sounds like muscular dystrophy.
Okay.
Where the person starts losing the use of muscles, the muscle fiber start changing into fat.
All right.
And so you lose your mobility, you might lose your speech. If it affects the heart muscles and you start losing the heart muscles, then a person can degenerate to a point where the person will totally lose everything and die. There are, I think, about 34 different types of muscular dystrophy.
34?
Yeah, there are different types. There are so many. And different types would set in at different ages. Yeah, so there are those ones who can grow up to a certain age and get degeneration. Now that is degeneration. It's different from disintegration.
Okay. By the time we're done, I think I'll acquire 50% of your PhD.
Because in disintegration, it takes a short period of time.
Okay.
And you totally lose quite a number of things, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the degeneration is slow. It's slower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what would you feel when this is happening? Like, what would be like a sign or a symptom for me to, apart from the mobility loss?
Now, for muscular dystrophy, you start losing the muscle power.
Okay.
You start tripping and falling down and spilling food and can't drink the way you were drinking before. Your speed starts going down, your coordination starts reducing. It depends on the type of muscular dystrophy that the person has. So then you start realizing that there's a problem. But you see, there are again other conditions that are related to muscular dystrophy.
Yeah.
So it could be that maybe, if it's an adult, maybe you're developing Alzheimer's that are related to motor coordination.
Okay.
But in terms of degeneration, the person will not realize that you're degenerating. So disintegration, because you are also losing your mental power. So you don't realize it yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the people around you who will realize that, but this person is no longer talking the way he was talking before. He's not writing, he's not interested in playing with other children. Yeah, he's now withdrawing. Then ritualistic behavior starts setting in. So you don't realize it, it's others who will realize it.
So you better have close friends, those who can monitor exactly what is going on with you. So next time you see someone changing in their behavior, in their mobility, and they start like their movement becomes clumsy, right? For lack of a better word, then you better just advise them to actually seek attention. Thank you, viewers, and we'd like to take a short break, and then we give Doctor at least a minute to breathe, and then when we come back, for those who have sent us your questions, then we shall address your questions. Don't forget, talk to us on our social media, and also we will be looking at the SMSs. The SMS number is 22050 and then 8. I'm learning my sign language. So we shall be with you in a few minutes. Don't go far. Let us give Dr. a few minutes to breathe, and then we get back and dive more into intervention. All right? Thank you. Welcome, viewers, to the third part of our 5th episode of Neuro Digest here on Science TV with me, Sylvia Mochabo, your host. Our interpreter is Maureen Maitha, and today we are hosting Dr. Onala, PhD, early intervention, and is a specialist consultant on neurodiverse conditions, right?
Neurodevelopmental.
Yes. Neurodevelopmental conditions. So we're going to move on onto the part of intervention. So Dr. be my guest.
Good. So early intervention. So usually early intervention, typically if you look at early intervention, there it should be. You know, we have the reality, and then we have the ideal situation. Okay. The ideal situation for early intervention is that it should be done quite early in life. Probably before 3 or before 6 years. So that if we look at the ideal situation. Okay. But the real situation is that in Kenya, diagnosis can be done at 10 years, 15, 20 years. So in Kenya, when we define it based on our situation, then we say interventions done from the time the condition is discovered or is diagnosed or identified. But ideally, in developed countries where these conditions are identified quite early in life, then early intervention will start. So what is early intervention? Early intervention simply means the services that are usually designed to help the child born at risk and those with the condition to catch up in life. Okay. Yeah, and it focuses on the child and the family.
So as a whole, the child and the environment, which is the immediate family
the
at home.
Immediate family, yeah.
Okay.
So let's say your child is diagnosed at the age of 1.5 or 2 years. So you go to a consultant, then you're told you think your child could be presenting symptoms of autism.
Okay.
The first thing the consultant should do is to teach you what you should do.
Okay.
Yeah, what should you do when you get home with this child?
All right.
And then you should also target on the siblings and all the other family members, because they'll all be interacting with this child. And then the child will be put on a program. So typically early intervention for children with autism, children with ADHD, and most of neurodevelopmental conditions revolve around helping them to acquire language or speech and language skills, social interaction, to reduce ritualistic behaviors, to improve their attention span, reduce hyperactivity and the like. So amongst the things that you do is to engage the child in a lot of structured play.
Okay.
So you have to acquire different types of toys and get enough time to play with your child. That's usually the beginning.
As a parent now.
As a parent.
Okay.
And if the child starts going to school, then the teachers in school also need to have a variety of toys and engage that child in play, a lot of structured play. Structured play is different from free play.
So like go outside and sort yourself out.
Yeah, that is free play.
That is free play.
Yeah.
Okay.
But children with autism, let's say you buy them fancy toys and give them, then probably not play with that toy because they do not know how to play.
Okay.
So you have to sit down yourself and engage the child in a variety of play. Pretend to be cooking, to be eating, make those walk and talk the child. So do a lot of talking and lots of playing, and if there are other children, get those other children join in play.
In the play.
Now, for children in early years, we talk of intensive early intervention. Intensive early intervention means minimum of 25 hours per week.
Oh, per week?
Yeah, per week in terms of play. Because that neurotypical child spends a lot of time playing outside. They actually spend more than 40 hours
outside.
Yes, playing. Now, for this other child who is spending a lot of time maybe playing with just a stick or just rocking or watching TV, you need to get that child out of that and play with the child. Now, you need to train this child on basic skills like buttoning or lacing, modeling play. You need to train the child in toileting skills. So start potty training, let them sit on the potty. If the child finds it really difficult to sit on the potty, do toilet timing. That means you try to establish what time that child usually need to go for a long call or for short call, and then make them sit on the potty just shortly before that time.
Okay.
So then with time they learn.
That if I'm put here, this is what is expected of me.
Yeah.
Then this is a question I've always wondered, like how long is sufficient time to be able to, when we're doing just a bit back on the diagnosis side of it and the intervention side, when you're trying to figure out this is the environment of this child, this is how they behave, how much time do you as a consultant when it comes to intervention and diagnosis, do you need with this child to be able to correctly affirm that this is what the issue is? Yeah.
Consultant might not spend a lot of time with the child.
Okay.
Because before diagnosis is made, there's background information that is given.
Okay.
So the consultant will spend a lot of time with you, digging into your history and the things that you observed, and maybe give you some forms to fill in to rate the child. If the child is already going to school maybe 3 years and has joined kindergarten, then the teachers will also be asked to rate the child.
Okay.
There are some cases where either the consultant or a representative will go to the school to observe the child in a natural environment. Yeah, and especially in cases like ADHD, because the diagnostic statistical manual requires that the behavior must be exhibited in more than one environment.
So if not only in the house but outside and maybe in another different public setting.
Yes, exactly.
So but then personally, well, I know when I was getting all of this, there was because it was in a school setting, but no one came to my house.
Yes. So, but did the person interview you to know what's happening?
Yeah, I filled like 10 pages.
Yes. So that gives a lot of background information.
Okay.
And then you're also told to rate the child.
Rate them, I'm not quite sure.
Did you tick certain things?
Yeah, there was a lot of ticking questions. You know, those questions that take you back to like, okay, do they really do this if I was to rate? But sometimes I always say, like, for me, I'm having even right now a hard time when I see a 3-year-old child talking because it feels very weird to me. Because the last child that I had who was neurotypical, that is my firstborn who's turning 13. My secondborn who's now turning 9. Imagine I've had 9 years of his life. So when I'm out in the street and I'm interacting with a child, I find myself guessing like, how can you talk all of that? You know, like this tiny person, because of that environment of staying with my children and because they don't talk much, because they've just started talking, so we're still on the learning phase. And when those such questions are being asked, you know, for a parent who has a neurodiverse child, for you to try and really gauge them can be a bit difficult.
Yes.
It can be a bit difficult.
Yeah. So, usually, like play, when you start it, it will be difficult.
Okay.
But you get into sync with play, and then it becomes part of your life. So you get home and you're running with the children and you're laughing, you're throwing them up in the air, and then you need to get some pictures for helping them to start articulating certain ones, naming pictures, naming objects, so developing their language from that early age. So you can consult with a speech therapist or an occupational therapist to come up with lots of activities that you'll be able to do from that early age.
Okay. But now that speech therapy is occupational therapy, you're the one who's to tell me as a parent, right?
Right. Okay. So usually the consultant will advise you. But sometimes getting a speech therapist might be difficult.
Why is that?
Because Kenya just started training speech therapy recently and we not yet have locally trained graduates. So Kenyatta University is the first university in Kenya to start training that. And so we have those ones who are about to graduate, the first lot.
The first lot.
Yes.
Now, if they're just about to graduate, and our children are out here, and I know we have quite a number of speech therapists. Okay, not quite a number, they're not sufficient, because I know trying to find one, trying to get their time, and maybe that's why they're very expensive. Yeah. So at least we have gotten to get to understand the process of how to get early diagnosis and early intervention. Like, how many types of interventions do we have?
There's so many.
Just to name, because of time. So, if we were to just name like how many styles, or if it's styles or something like that.
The leading one that I would recommend for most of my listeners would be floor time therapy. Floor time is just play therapy. Okay. Get variety of toys. Don't say my son cannot play with dolls. Your son will play with dolls if you train him. So get a variety of play materials and spend a lot of time talking to your child, playing with your child, and teaching most of the skills through play. Because play is the most natural way through which children learn. So get a lot of resources. Then diet is usually very important. So many children with autism tend to have a lot of allergies and intolerances, especially for dairy and wheat. So it's something that is worth exploring, whether you need to eliminate that from your child's diet. And then sugars also precipitate hyperactivity, make them quite inattentive and hyper. So that's one thing that you might need to consider. Increasing the level of essential fats like omega-3 would be quite important, because sometimes they delete or they deplete the essential fats because they are constantly running up and down and they're not focusing on the right thing. They're listening to so many things at the same time. So their brains work more than our brain. It's overloaded. They see more details, finer details that you're not seeing. And they are listening to their senses. They're seeing what's happening in the environment. So we need to supplement certain things, like essential fats. Omega-3 would be an area that need to be considered. And then generally, healthy feeding. Cut down on refined carbohydrates, sugars, cookies, cakes, those kind of things, and give your child healthy diet.
Okay. You heard it today from the doctor, not from me as a mother. Today you heard it from the doctor. Thank you for staying with us. Because of time, I'm sure we shall invite Daktari again to tell us at least there is the youth side and the adult side. And like I told you, autism is a very wide topic, so we will be covering it the entire season. And thank you, Daktari, for joining us. Thank you, Maureen, for interpretation. And thank you, viewers, for staying with us from beginning to now. And for those who have missed our episode, you'll catch us on Facebook. And thank you for engaging us once again. And we shall see you next week. And thank you for staying with Neuro Digest here on Science TV. Catch you next week, the same time, 8 p.m. here on Science TV. Thank you, and we see you next time. Have a good night.